Hello and welcome to In Depth. I'm Teena Jha. The world's oldest travel and tour firm, Thomas Cook, has collapsed. In a statement released on Monday, the British company said it had no choice but to take the drastic step to enter into compulsory liquidation with immediate effect. The move has left thousands of holidaymakers around the globe stranded, sparking the largest peacetime repatriation effort in British history. The liquidation marks the end of one of Britain's oldest companies that started way back in 1841, running local rail excursions. It survived the two world wars and went on to pioneer package holidays and mass tourism. The 178-year-old firm also ran hotels, resorts and airlines for 19 million people a year in as many as 16 countries. Currently, it has 6 lakh people aboard, forcing governments and insurance companies to coordinate a huge rescue operation. The collapse of the holiday major has sent shockwaves across the world, including India. But Thomas Cook India Limited has clarified that it has nothing to do with the UK company since 2012, when it was acquired by Canada-based Fairfax Financial Holdings. Today in In-Depth, we analyse what led to the collapse of Thomas Cook and what impact it will have worldwide. We'll also look at other major companies that have gone bust in the past decade. So the liquidation of Thomas Cook marks the end of one of Britain's oldest companies that began in 1841. What started as small local rail excursions flourished into a global business of packaged holidays and mass tourism, surviving 2 world wars in between. The firm also ran hotels, resorts and airlines for 19 million people a year in 16 countries. The closure of the company came after it failed to secure a rescue package from its lenders in frantic talks that went through the weekend. The government also rejected a request from Thomas Cook for a bailout of about £150 million because doing so would have set up a moral hazard. The development is a culmination of a tumultuous year for the company. Since May 2018, its shares have fallen by more than 96% amid Brexit uncertainty and intense competition also in the tourism sector. More details in this report.
The world's oldest travel and tour firm, Thomas Cook, has collapsed. The 178-year-old British operator's collapse caps a painful year and has left hundreds of thousands of travellers stranded, a large chunk of them from the UK. In a statement, the company said its board had no choice but to take steps to enter into compulsory liquidation with immediate effect.
Following a decision by the board late last night, the UK government's official receiver was appointed in the early hours of this morning, the 23rd of September, to take control of Thomas Cook. Despite huge efforts over a number of months and further intense negotiations in recent days, we have not been able to secure a deal to save our business. I know that this outcome will be devastating to many people and will cause a lot of anxiety, stress and disruption.
Thomas Cook scrambled over the weekend to avoid the collapse after the Royal Bank of Scotland and a range of other banks demanded that Thomas Cook Group plc find £200 million in funding by this week. The group had seemed set for a rescue when it agreed the key terms of a £900 million recapitalisation plan in a deal with its biggest shareholder, China's Fosun, and the travel firm's banks in August. But while finalising the terms of the deal, the company was asked to facilitate another £200 million in unwritten funds, finally leading to the collapse.
I want to apologise to my 21,000 colleagues who I know will be heartbroken. You all fought so hard to make Thomas Cook a success. Secondly, I would like to say sorry to all our customers. Finally, I would like to apologize to the many thousands of hoteliers and suppliers who have stuck by our business in good times and in bad, and who now face difficult financial choices of their own.
Thomas Cook is now working with Britain's Civil Aviation Authority closely to help with the repatriation efforts. The UK CAA said Thomas Cook had now ceased trading and the regulator and the government would work together to bring the more than 150,000 British customers home over the next 2 weeks. The plan, nicknamed Operation Matterhorn, would cost the UK government an estimated $750 million.
I took the decision that, look, people need to be back for work, for their families, all sorts of reasons. We can't just leave, Brits stranded abroad. We need to bring people home. 150,000 people is the biggest peacetime repatriation this country's ever known, and we'll try and do it as quickly and as smoothly as possible.
If passengers have a flight booked out from the UK today, unfortunately your flight has been cancelled. So please don't go to the airport. If you're overseas on a Thomas Cook holiday, then you can continue to enjoy your holiday. The CAA is launching a repatriation. This is the largest repatriation since the Second World War, and we will be bringing home everybody back to the UK as close as possible to their return date.
Currently, Thomas Cook has over 5 lakh customers on vacation, including over 1.5 lakhs from the United Kingdom alone.
Even the staff at home in our local shop are very helpful. Unfortunately, they've all lost their jobs. It must be awful for them as well. Coming up to Christmas as well. Yeah, I feel very, very sorry for them. Very sorry.
Still hoping, obviously, to get on a Thomas Cook flight. They're still accepting bookings and flights, obviously, late last night. I just had a bit of a sixth sense at 2 o'clock this morning. Got up, checked the website, and that's when it hit the fan, basically.
Depending on where the travellers are located, return flights will be either on flights operated by the CAA or by existing flights with other airlines. For all the travellers who are abroad on holiday packages and are protected by the Air Travel Organisers Licence or ATOL, the Aviation Authority will sort out their hotel bills. ATOL is a UK financial protection program that protects most air package holidays sold by UK-based travel businesses. CAA has told UK travellers that arrangements are being made, urging them not to make a payment to their hotel unless instructed otherwise by the CAA team. They also said that if the guarantee is not accepted by the accommodation provider, the travellers may need to be relocated to another hotel for the duration of their stay. However, Thomas Cook customers that only booked hotel stays will not be bailed out by the Aviation Authority. ATOL protection only applies to hotels when booked as part of an air-inclusive holiday package. Bureau Report, Rajya Sabha TV.
The iconic British travel company Thomas Cook has shocked travellers around the world with its declaration of bankruptcy. But travellers with bookings from Thomas Cook India need not be worried at all, since it is a completely different entity from Thomas Cook UK and won't be affected by the latest development.
After the inevitable collapse of Thomas Cook that failed to secure a rescue funding, its Indian wing, which operates as a separate entity, has clarified that it will not be affected by the development. Thomas Cook India has stated that it is a completely different entity from Thomas Cook UK, as it was acquired by Fairfax Financial Holdings via 77% stake in 2012, and that the developments concerning the UK-based company have not impacted it. Post the transfer of its entire stake in Thomas Cook India Limited to Fairfax, Thomas Cook UK ceased to be the promoter of Thomas Cook India Limited, and since then, Thomas Cook UK has no stake in Thomas Cook India Limited.
There are two companies, Thomas Cook PLC, which is a UK-based company, and there's Thomas Cook India Limited, which is again a public limited company that's listed on the stock exchange. Thomas Cook UK has stopped owning any shares in Thomas Cook India back in the year 2012. Correct. In 2012, Fairfax came in and acquired a majority shareholding in Thomas Cook India, which they continue to maintain. As far as the relationship between Thomas Cook India and Thomas Cook PLC in the UK, we have absolutely no relationship. We don't handle each other's customers. We don't use their capabilities at all. They don't use our capabilities. We used to deal with them for some time, but even that has stopped.
The clarification comes in the wake of more than 600,000 vacationers who booked through the tour operator Thomas Cook being on the edge. After one of the world's oldest and biggest travel companies collapsed, the Indian entity has released its financial report to assure travellers of its safety from the crisis. It said that Thomas Cook India Group's cash and bank deposit balances stand at 13,890 million rupees as of June 30th, 2019. On a standalone basis, Thomas Cook India is debt-free upon prepayment of 670 million rupees debenture obligations ahead of schedule. Thomas Cook India observed a 21% growth in demand for the Durga Puja festival break from travellers in West Bengal and surrounding source markets. Domestic tourism is witnessing a strong resurgence, with an over 20% growth in demand from across Andamans, Kerala and Himachal Pradesh, among others.
Thomas Cook UK has got planes, we don't. We operate on an asset-light model, they operate on an asset-heavy model. Right. So these models are completely different. Secondly, we've got a foreign exchange business, which is our largest business. They don't have a foreign exchange business. So, there is absolutely no comparison between us. And this existed even when they owned us. There was no comparison, and we did very little or no business with each other, and which is possibly the reason why they sold us in 2012 anyway.
Assurance देना चाहता हूँ हमारे कस्टमर्स को, वेंडर्स को, बिजनेस पार्टनर्स को कि आपका बुकिंग जो आपने किया होगा सेफ है. थॉमस कुक इंडिया फाइनेंशियली स्ट्रॉन्ग कंपनी है. हमारा जून 30 को 2019 को 1389 करोड़ का कैश एंड बैंक बैलेंस था. ये प्रॉफिटेबल कंपनी है और यूके के जो न्यूज़ है उससे हमारा कुछ भी लेना देना नहीं है.
Thomas Cook UK, which began its operation in 1841 with a one-day train excursion in England before spreading to 16 countries, has struggled over the past few years, and Monday's collapse is the culmination of a long financial battle. Bureau Report, Rajya Sabha TV.
Time for a short break on the program. We'll be right back. Do stay with us.
Post-abrogation of Article 370, Indian Army's recruitment rally in Jammu and Kashmir.
Hundreds of youths in this area came out to participate in the Army recruitment rally.
Years of armed conflict giving way to dreams and aspirations. RSTV reports from Mendhar sector of Poonch in Jammu and Kashmir. Watch our ground report on Army recruitment rally in Jammu and Kashmir.
Welcome back. You're watching In Depth. One of the world's most well-known tour operators, Thomas Cook, became synonymous with the modern concept of packaged holidays, and they come with plenty of heritage. The company can trace its origins back 178 years, when the very first tour was organized by a Leicestershire printer who could not have envisaged that his simple scheme would give birth to a colossal company. The brand survived 2 world wars, and after that, there was no looking back. In our next report, we'll look at the history of the world's oldest travel operator that has now gone bust.
Thomas Cook was one of the giants of the British High Street, with millions of holidaymakers travelling with the operator every year. From its humble beginnings offering short train journeys, the company now runs hotels, resorts, airlines and cruises from its hundreds of stores. But more than 178 years after it was founded, the High Street staple has ceased trading. Although it is now best known for its trips abroad, when cabinet maker Thomas Cook founded the business in Leicestershire in 1841, it originally focused on one-day rail excursions. Cook believed that alcohol was to blame for social problems and organized a special train to carry temperance supporters to a meeting 12 miles away. In the following years, Cook continued to arrange railway trips for temperance societies. After this, in 1845, Cook organized his first commercial venture, a trip to Liverpool. The same year, a handbook, essentially an early version of a travel guide, was produced to accompany this tour. He eventually moved beyond the UK into Europe and then further afield. In 1855, Cook conducted his first continental tour, taking trips around the British Isles and to London's Great Exhibition and finally to Paris for the International Exhibition. The trip also marked the first time Thomas Cook offered a complete holiday package made up of travel, accommodation and food. In 1864, Cook welcomed his son John Mason Cook, aged 30, to the business. In 1871, the official name of the company became Thomas Cook & Son. In 1872-73, Thomas Cook organized and led the world's first round-the-world tour. The company flourished, fueled by a growing middle class and its desire to travel. Thomas' son, John Mason Cook, eventually took over running the company from his father, who died in 1892. In 1899, John Mason Cook died suddenly at the age of 65. The company passed into the hands of his three sons, Frank, Ernest and Thomas. In 1948, Thomas Cook & Son became state-owned under the British Transport Holding Company. In 1965, Thomas Cook's net profits exceeded £1 million for the first time. In 1972, the company was privatized and bought by a consortium of Midland Bank. The company changed its name to the Thomas Cook Group 2 years later. In 1984, the "Don't just book it, Thomas Cook it" tagline was introduced. In 1997, the company launched Thomas Cook Online. In the first quarter of the 20th century, Thomas Cook's grandsons added winter sports, motor car tours, and commercial air travel to its offerings. In 2011, Thomas Cook merged its UK retail operations with those of Cooperative Group and the Midlands Cooperative Society, creating the UK's largest ever chain of travel agents. But later that year, the firm nearly went bust as it struggled to cope with the debts of nearly £1 billion. In 2013, Thomas Cook announced that Thomas Cook Airlines in the UK, Belgium, Scandinavia, together with Condor in Germany, will be merged into a single operating division within the Thomas Cook Group. And in 2019, the travel operator hit hard times and closed 21 high street stores in March. This year, the Royal Bank of Scotland and a range of other banks demanded that Thomas Cook Group plc find $250 million in funding. The company announced that it had no choice but to take steps to enter into compulsory liquidation with immediate effect. The firm ceased trading in the early hours of 23rd September, and all its hundreds of thousands of bookings were cancelled. Bureau Report, Rajya Sabha TV.
Thomas Cook is not the only company that has collapsed after decades of being in business. The 2007-8 global recession, considered as the most serious financial crisis since the Great Depression of the 1930s, saw numerous companies shutting shop across the world. This included the collapse of Lehman Brothers, which was the fourth largest investment bank in the United States of America at that time and employed more than 25,000 people around the world. Lehman's declaration of bankruptcy was the largest in history, as its assets far surpassed those of previous bankrupt giants such as WorldCom and Enron. India too has seen the collapse of several companies due to lack of funds in recent times. Take a look at them in this report.
From April 2008 till March 2009, a whopping 44 lenders in America were shut down by the authorities as the country continued to grapple with a bursting financial meltdown. The collapse of global investment bank Lehman Brothers on September 15, 2008 marked the beginning of the worst phase of the global financial crisis. With $639 billion in assets and $619 billion in debt, Lehman's bankruptcy filing was the largest in history. Once the fourth largest investment bank in the US, Lehman Brothers was operational for 158 years from 1850. It survived many of the world's largest disasters, including 2 world wars and the Great Depression, but the housing crisis in 2008 caused its ultimate downfall. This was all due to Lehman's involvement in the subprime mortgage crisis, supposed negligence and excessive risk-taking. By 2008, the bank held 30 times as much in real estate products as it had capital, and it had been borrowing too much money to fund its mortgage investments. The company filed for bankruptcy following a major loss of clients, dramatic stock losses, and devaluation of assets by credit rating agencies. Its collapse brought the financial sector of the world to its knees. In 2008, Circuit City, once the top US electronics retailer, went out of business after failing to find a buyer that would keep it going. The company was ultimately felled by its inability to respond as quickly and deftly to the rise of online retailers like Amazon and aggressive incursions by mass merchants like Walmart and Target.
Yes, during the last 10 years after the Lehman crisis, there are a lot of developments in the economy, ups and downs. Sometimes economies are facing booms and sometimes depressions. So this boom-depression situation is continues since the last many years. So I believe economies will stabilize in the coming times, because now every economy is taking strong measures to strengthen their domestic economic environment. So going forward, we can expect stability in the global growth, as IMF has already anticipated that global growth will be higher in the next year. So with the restructuring of the various businesses, the economic growth is now in the slow mode for the current year, anticipated at the rate of 3.2%. But going forward, we can expect a stable economic environment throughout the world.
In 2009, the largest automobile manufacturer in the world, General Motors, filed for bankruptcy with the assurance that the US government would bail it out with a cash injection of $50 billion in return for about 2/3 ownership of the company. In just 4 years, from 2005 to 2009, the company had netted $51 billion in losses. However, in 2010, the reorganized General Motors made an initial public offering that was one of the world's top 5 largest IPOs to date and returned to profitability later that year. The global recession started in December 2007. However, its initial impact on India was muted. GDP growth slowed from 9% in 2007-08 to 7.8% in April-September 2008. But after the Wall Street collapse in September, India's growth plummeted to 5.8%. Yet, it far exceeded the World Bank's forecast of 4% in 2009. As many as 19 Indian cooperative banks collapsed for the 12 months ended March 2009. During 2007-08, as many as 22 cooperative banks in India closed operations. India also faced its biggest corporate fraud in Satyam Computer Services in 2009. The case, which is also called the Enron of India, surfaced when its founder, B. Ramalinga Raju, wrote a letter to SEBI and his company's shareholders admitting that he had manipulated the company's earnings and fooled the investors. Nearly 1 billion or 94% of the cash on the books was fictitious. In an immediate reaction to the confession, investors lost as much as 14,000 crore or $2.2 billion as Satyam's shares tanked. Eventually, Satyam was taken over by the Mahindra Group and Satyam merged to form India's 5th largest IT exports company. The merged entity is called Mahindra Satyam. In 2014, market regulator SEBI barred Raju from the capital markets for 14 years, and imposed a fine of 1,849 crore rupees. Raju was found guilty of cheating in April 2015. The airline industry too is no stranger to bankruptcies. India has seen the collapse of two major domestic players in recent times. Until 2011, Kingfisher Airlines had the second largest share in India's domestic and air travel market. Owned by the now beleaguered liquor baron Vijay Mallya, the airline was set up in 2003. By 2009, Kingfisher was heading towards a downward spiral and laid off around 100 pilots. Between 2009 and 2012, Kingfisher accumulated losses of over 6,600 crore rupees and a debt of over 7,000 crore rupees. Finally, Kingfisher shut its airline in 2011. Jet Airways was considered the brightest star in the Indian aviation sector. Founded in 1991, Jet suffered its first ever loss in financial year 2001 and 2 because of the fall in demand and increase in operational cost. But an increasingly volatile economy, rising fuel prices led to mounting losses and non-payment of dues to lenders and employees, making the airline finally halt its operations in April this year. In recent years, Videocon Group admitted to stupendous outstandings to various public and private lenders, amounting to over 90,000 crore rupees, making it perhaps the biggest corporate bankruptcy case in Indian banking history. Bureau Report, Rajya Sabha TV.
So that's it from us today in depth. We'll be back same time tomorrow with a focus on some other comprehensive subject. In case you missed the television broadcast of the program, you can also watch it online on YouTube and Twitter, the link for which is given below on your screens. You can also send in suggestions and feedback about the program. Thank you very much for your time.